Hey sassy lady, this is Matri, एक social media marketer, एक mother and a simple yet sassy woman just like you. ये है Little Fixes podcast, आपकी evergreen audio lifestyle magazine. यहाँ मैं और मेरे guest शेयर करते हैं sweet, simple and practical ideas to help you in improving every aspect of your life. Career, fitness, mental health and personal growth are just some of the topics we cover. This podcast is like the real talk you have with your real friends. So continue what you're doing and keep listening. Hello Sassy Nari. Thank you for joining me today. This is episode 100 and a big milestone for me. When I started Little Fixes in December 2019, I knew that I wanted to do it long term. Life kept happening, I took breaks, and now have even reduced the frequency of episodes. But I'm proud of the fact that I didn't stop. Little Fixes started as a podcast which covered every aspect of a woman's life, from fitness to mental health, beauty to parenting, and everything in between. As I have grown as a person, I have molded it more into a personal growth podcast with a focus on mental health. I now call it Life Upgrade for the Sassy Nari. In the podcast, me and my guest try to provide you simple, actionable ideas to fix or improve various aspects of your life. I feel so fortunate that I get to do this and to have received every bit of your love and support. Want to say a heartfelt thank you if you have listened to Little Fixes even for a minute or have recommended it to someone. I am celebrating these 100 episodes and hope कि आपकी कुछ help हुई होगी इस podcast से. Please just keep supporting Little Fixes because the messages I want to spread are way bigger than this podcast. Now for the 100th episode, the topic had to be something close to my heart and something more and more people need to be aware of. इसलिए आज बात होगी साइकोथेरेपी की नीड के बारे में. बहुत से लोग ऐसा मानते हैं कि if you know your patterns, you can just get over them easily. Or if you have caring friends and family, you don't need therapy. Even अगर आप थेरेपी लेते हो तो उसका मतलब है कि you don't have true friends in your life. और ऐसे भी लोग होते हैं जो सोचते हैं कि थेरेपिस्ट exaggerate our issues to make money. I too have held some of these beliefs in the past, but such things make me cringe now. I'm sure कि और भी कई misconceptions होंगे थेरेपी के बारे में because these are just the thoughts of people close to me. इन सारी myths को तोड़ने और आपको clarity देने के लिए आज मैंने invite किया है साची अग्रवाल को. Saachi is my therapist too, and I am learning so much with her. Saachi is a clinical psychologist and a certified trauma expert committed to understanding and treating emotional pain and trauma by helping individuals overcome their relationships roadblock. She works with men, women, couples and teens. She is also a suicide first responder. Saachi बताएंगी कि थेरेपी में क्या होता है, इसकी जरूरत ही क्यों है, why can't we just talk to friends and family, what to expect from therapy और इसके क्या benefits होते हैं, what to ask a therapist before you decide to work with them. So let's welcome her. Hi Saachi, I'm thrilled to have you on Little Fixes.
Hi Maitri, thank you for having me here and thank you for that lovely introduction. I love the intro to your podcast. It's just so nice and energizing, especially at this hour of the day when everybody's feeling sleepy and I'm feeling sleepy and suddenly I feel awake. So thank you for that introduction.
या तो साची हम अपनी बात शुरू करते हैं. तो आजकल थेरेपी और इसके डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स के बारे में पहले से कहीं ज्यादा अवेयरनेस है, पर बहुत ज्यादा काम होना बाकी भी है. आज हम लोग हर तरह की थेरेपी के बारे में बात तो नहीं कर सकते, पर मैं आपके अप्रोच के बारे में जानना चाहूंगी कि आप किस तरीके से अपने जो I don't know if we should call them patients के साथ work.
Clients. I prefer to call them clients, yeah. So I'm trained as a clinical psychologist, but I use a lot of various modalities when I'm working with my clients. Primarily, I use a modality called compassionate inquiry, which is developed by Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm also using bits of internal family systems. I'm using polyvagal theory and I'm using a little bit of somatic work as well. In all of this, I help my clients begin with a nice clean grounding. I bring intention to the session. I take them deep into childhood wounds or specific memories or instances with a parent or someone or a caregiver that might have caused them this. I help them to uncover any core beliefs they might have developed, typically from the ages of 3 to 7, and what that might have meant for them during the different aspects of their life, and just different paths that might have developed um, through their childhood and through young adulthood. And through a lot of gentle questioning, a little bit of guiding, I help them come to their truth themselves, and I help them choose their true authentic selves over just building attachment and over just maintaining relationships. So the root of my work is always authenticity.
Okay, so that's so interesting to know कि कितनी सारी चीजें होती हैं और लोगों को लगता है कि सिर्फ बात कर रहे हैं. तो और ये भी होता है कि people mostly go to therapy when they feel something isn't quite right. And in one of my earlier episodes, I had spoken to a psychiatrist and she had mentioned कि अगर लाइफ में सब ठीक चल रहा हो तो वो थेरेपी में जाने का बेस्ट टाइम है. मतलब कुछ प्रॉब्लम लग रही है तब तो जाना ही है, साथ ही जब सब ठीक लग रहा हो तो भी you can give a go to therapy. So I'd like to understand both of these ideas from you.
So typically somebody would approach a therapist or a counselor or any sort of trauma expert if they're dealing with something. If they've had an incident or a trauma or history of something that's affected them to a point where it might start showing up in some places in their lives. They feel overly triggered. They have explosions of rage, and things like that. During this time, they would definitely be working with a therapist. But personally, for me, I started first working with a therapist when I was 20. Now, I did not go to a therapist because of an issue at hand or a situation that I was dealing with, but more per se because I was so taken by the concept of therapy and I didn't know what to expect. I found, as a 20-year-old, I found it rather cool to have a personal therapist who I take all my problems to. But little did I know that session after session, when I did sit with her, and all the things that I realized, some of which was very painful, it was difficult for me to go to therapy a lot of times. And in the last 7 to 8 years, I myself haven't had consistent therapy. There have been times when I've had breakthroughs in therapy where I almost felt like I was leaving, and it took a lot of courage and a lot of strength to get back to it. So yes, I absolutely agree that even if you go to therapy with nothing at hand, usually what will come out is something that you might go back wondering or thinking or even find it too painful to actually address.
तो फिर इस चीज को एड्रेस करने की जरूरत ही क्या है? मान लो सब ठीक ही चल रहा था तो वाई, कहते हैं ना गड़े मुर्दे उखाड़ना, वाई डू दैट?
Because Maitri, if something is affecting you on the surface, even if your survival or your coping mechanism states that everything's perfectly fine on the outside, a person who needs therapy or person who wants to explore some sort of support within mental health does at the core feel some sort of emptiness or some sort of fog or cloud in their brain, or just maybe some form of trigger in the mildest way that keeps showing up in their life. And it's that curiosity of what they're experiencing that is hard sometimes to put into words to somebody else. It's the experience that even on the surface, when everything's looking good, something within is lacking. And that's why the need for therapy.
Okay, so I hope people understand this thing which you have just mentioned. और एक पॉइंट ये भी आता है कि can we process our emotions on our own, because it's said that all the answers lie within. तो क्या हम अपने आप ही अगर पैटर्न्स पता है या फिर पता नहीं भी है तो क्या पता कर सकते हैं कि हाँ इस चीज ने ट्रिगर किया, ये वहां से आया था, इसलिए आई शुडंट बी ट्रिगर्ड लाइक दिस, आई शुड डू दिस इंस्टेड? ऐसा हो सकता है क्या?
ऐसा हो सकता है, but a lot of times when you are working with your childhood wounds, when you're trying to work on your triggers, it's hard to do it with yourself, because sitting with these triggers and sitting with these stories and when they were developed, it only happens in the presence of a lot of safety, in the presence of a lot of compassion. um and that's sometimes hard to find it with yourself, and it might be easier to do that with somebody who's able to provide you with that kind of safety.
Okay. So if we talk about safety, how about talking to someone close, like friends या family में कोई person है जिसको आप बहुत trust करते हो, and can it replace therapy? Like जैसे ये बोला भी जाता है ना कि पहले लोग साथ में रहते थे, मिलते जुलते रहते थे एक दूसरे से, तो mental illnesses नहीं होती थी, या maybe we were not aware of it, but this is one of the things which is said. तो क्या हम लोग लोगों से बात करके, अपने सिबलिंग से, पेरेंट्स से, हस्बैंड से बात करके थेरेपी को रिप्लेस कर सकते हैं?
The easiest way to answer this is, if you have a fever or a cough or a headache, a migraine, would you turn to your partner, your sibling, your parent to prescribe you a medicine if they're not a doctor? Similarly, to work on any of your mental health or trauma related stuff, you can't turn to them. Uh, Therapy is also a profession, and therapists are trained to give you tools, they're trained to give you insights, they're trained to give you systems, strategies that help you reflect and turn inward for these answers. And unfortunately, a lot of people believe that you can just turn to a friend for this. But with a friend, with a partner, they have their own biases. They have their own ways to protect you. They could have their own ways of being involved in something that also works for them. And it might not ultimately be for your highest good. I'm just saying that it's just an example, there are a lot of biases. So it's best to turn to a therapist for therapy and not your parent or your friend.
ओके, एंड अगर आपने शुरू से एपिसोड सुना है तो साची ने बताया भी कि वो कितनी सारी चीजें यूज करती है, मोडालिटीज यूज करती हैं अलग अलग, तब जाके शी स्टार्ट्स वर्किंग ऑन हीलिंग यू. एंड यू कांट एक्सपेक्ट अ सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर टू हील यू, यू कांट एक्सपेक्ट अ डॉक्टर टू, लाइक अगर कोई ऑर्थोपेडिक है, आई डोंट नो व्हाट टू कॉल देम, तो वो आपका मेंटल इलनेस पे आपकी हेल्प नहीं कर सकता है. एंड इन द सेम वे, अगर आपकी बोन में कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो यू विल नॉट गो टू अ साइकोलॉजिस्ट. तो इट्स वाइस वर्सा एंड इट वर्क्स बोथ वेज. तो इट्स हाई टाइम दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड कि हाँ, इट द थेरेपी, mental illness, it's a thing. Yes, in fact, yesterday I watched a video of a famous athlete who was dismissing therapy, who was saying कि लोगों को डिप्रेशन होता है, अगर पैशन है तो डिप्रेशन नहीं होगा. एंड ही ऑल्सो सेड कि आजकल के बच्चे एसी क्लासरूम्स में पढ़ते हैं और वो कहते हैं कि बहुत प्रेशर है. तो दिस वाज मेकिंग मॉकरी ऑफ a thing which is true, like it is a mental condition, it's a health condition, and he was mocking it, people were laughing at it. It somehow triggered me a lot also. तो और मैं सही में भी ऐसे लोगों को जानती हूँ who talk like that, जिनको लगता है कि नहीं, ये तो बस हवाई बातें हैं, ये सब सही में कुछ नहीं होता है. क्योंकि लोगों को लगता है कि दुनिया में इतने सारे दुख हैं, तुम्हारा ये दुख तो बहुत छोटा है कि तुम एसी क्लासरूम में बैठे हो और तुम्हें पढ़ाई का प्रेशर लग रहा है, तुम्हें पेरेंट्स का प्रेशर लग रहा है, राइट? तो ये कंपैरिजन जो करते हैं लोग ट्रॉमास का, इन माई एक्सपीरियंस आई हैव ऑल्सो सीन कि जो सिबलिंग्स होते हैं उनके भी एक्सपीरियंसेस डिफरेंट होते हैं, इवन इफ दे ग्रो अप इन द सेम हाउस विद द सेम सेट ऑफ पेरेंट्स. तो how can you expect someone who is living in a completely different situation to have similar experiences as yours? तो साची, ये जो कंपैरिजन वाली बात आती है, इसके ऊपर भी आप प्लीज कुछ बताइए हमें.
You mean, how do you mean comparing your situation with somebody else's?
Yes, like when people say ना कि अरे मैं भी तो उसी घर में तुम्हारे साथ रहती थी, बट तुम ज्यादा सोचती हो इसलिए तुम्हें लगता है कि तुम्हारे साथ ये सब हुआ था, ऐसा कुछ नहीं हुआ था, एंड योर एक्सपीरियंस doesn't count, something like that.
Yeah. So, Maitri, in this case, you're right. Even two, kids who are siblings who are brought up in the same household can have two very different reactions and responses to the same situation. And at the base of it, no two people are the same. Two people in when they're hit by some sort of crisis or problem, they would react very, very differently. And it is their reaction to a particular situation that consists of how they survived or how they coped during a particular time. In a difficult scenario, in a household maybe where the parents don't get along, or maybe where the parents are going through a divorce, the children if there are 2 children, 3 children, they use very different ways of coping and very different ways of being. If one child might tell himself or herself that everything's okay, I should just focus, another child may be completely broken down and may not be able to function at all. So it's very hard to compare your trauma with somebody else. Um, One reason being that because two people react differently, and also it all depends on how the situation was interpreted in the brain of this person and what support was available to them at this point in time. Some external support, maybe a friend, maybe a teacher. So it all has like very different parameters and it's hard to compare.
Yeah. सो आई थिंक जो कंपैरिजन वाली बात है वो नहीं आनी चाहिए बिकॉज लोग ट्रिवियलाइज कर देते हैं नॉट जस्ट विद सिबलिंग्स बट अगर हम लोग इशू कोई डिस्कस करते हैं तो पीपल आर लाइक तुम्हारा तो बहुत ही फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड इशू है हाउ व्हाई आर यू सो सैड क्योंकि तुम तो इतने लकी हो और इस जगह रहते हो ये करते हो बट आई थिंक सब अपनी सिचुएशन के हिसाब से ही अडाप्ट किया हुआ होता है और उसी के हिसाब से भी रिएक्ट टू आवर सिचुएशंस मे बी इफ यू आर पुट इन द अदर सिचुएशन we would react in a very different way और तब हमारा जो experience होगा जो response होगा वो अलग होगा तो there's no point in comparing, there's no point in mocking, there's no point in dismissing. तो let's continue. So Sachi, therapy की अगर बात करें तो what to expect from therapy कि मान लीजिए हमने therapy start कर दी तो ये कैसे पता चलेगा कि हम हील हो रहे हैं लोग कहते हैं कि कैसे पता चलेगा क्या मैजिकली मैं बिल्कुल हैप्पी गो लकी पर्सन बन जाऊंगी क्या मुझे कुछ भी फील नहीं होगा दुख किसी भी चीज़ का आई विल बी एबल टू कोप अप परफेक्टली विद एवरीथिंग तो हाउ डज इट गो
So people usually come to therapy because they don't feel connected anymore with people around them, with the communities they live in. They feel a lack of connection to themselves. And so essentially, therapy doesn't mean that it's going to change you completely or life is going to start looking better or magically something's going to change. Of course, it gives you the tools and the insights and the techniques to make better decisions. It helps you to start relying on your own self and your own power and your own autonomy from within and use your own self instead of depending on somebody else to come out of a certain situation. It teaches you to pick yourself in any situation. It teaches you to express what was left unexpressed throughout your life so that you're not carrying that around with you. um in therapy, your therapist should be addressing your needs, your wants, your desires, which is not something that everyone's able to get in the outside world. Therapy also helps you to regulate your nervous system. It helps you to feel whole again. It helps you to take care of yourself first. It helps you to set clear boundaries. It tells you when to say no. All these little shifts that we make and the paths that we reach out for sometimes that have been shut down or exiled. These are the paths that help you make those little shifts from within and help you use your own self energy. All these consist of healing, and that's what puts you on the path to healing or healing work.
mm-hmm. तो इसमें फिर ये मी फर्स्ट वाली बात तो नहीं आ जाती लाइक कई लोग ये भी कहते हैं कि थेरेपिस्ट मेक यू फील लाइक द वर्ल्ड रिवॉल्व्स अराउंड यू बट व्हेन यू गो इनटू द रियल वर्ल्ड द सिचुएशन इज वेरी डिफरेंट
Yeah. So people would first, you know, if your therapist wasn't taking your side, and if your therapist wasn't making everything revolve around you and wasn't giving you the compassion that you lacked in your life and treating you just the way everybody else treated you, maybe a parent, a partner, a friend, just a difficult childhood, if your therapist treated you in the same way, how would he or she be any different from what you've already been experiencing? And therefore, because your whole life, or for the most part, you suffered with not knowing when to say no, you had trouble with not knowing how to set a boundary. If you come to therapy and if the therapist doesn't make those 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 15 minutes all about you, then how is it any different from the rest of your world?
Right. So I think therapy makes you realize कि you matter. Like जो आपके opinions हैं या जो भी आपके experiences हैं, they matter and they make a difference in your life, in other people's life also. Okay, so ठीक है, हमने थेरेपी के बारे में सब जान लिया और ये भी पता कर लिया कि थेरेपी कैसे होती है, हमें कैसे पता चलेगा कि हम हील हो रहे हैं, लाइक हाउ इट वर्क्स ऑन अस. उसके बाद हाउ डू वी नो दैट इट्स टाइम टू एंड द थेरेपी?
Hmm. So it really depends on you and where you are in your journey of healing. If you feel complete uh, in 12, 15, 20 sessions, then that's where you close therapy. If you feel like you need somebody to guide you and be by your side for longer, maybe a couple of years, 4 years, 5 years, then that's what you go for. Therapy is something that is voluntary. Nobody can tell you how much time, how many sessions, how many months, how many years, and how often to do this for. It really depends on your own needs. Like I was saying, you're coming to therapy for your own unexpressed needs. So no one is a better judge of that than you yourself.
Hmm. That's an interesting point of view, or I think that's the right way to look at it. And Sachi, you said you feel complete. So, what do you mean by that?
When I say you feel complete, is you feel like you're in a better place. You're able to make the shifts. You don't want to see your therapist as often. This is the time when people go from doing therapy maybe once every 2 weeks. They increase the gap between the two sessions to maybe 15 days. But therapy work is never really complete because you're trying to change a core belief or a story you've been holding since forever.
Okay, so you are the best judge of your situation, and you get to decide कि आपको थेरेपी आगे बढ़ानी है कि नहीं बढ़ानी है. Maybe you can take a longer break and then go back again. So it obviously depends on situation to situation and what do you want to accomplish with therapy. एंड साची, जब हम एक थेरेपिस्ट से पहली बार बात करते हैं, बिकॉज लोगों के मन में बहुत सारे नोशंस होते हैं और दे आर ऑल्सो कंफ्यूज, दे आर ऑल्सो मे बी बायस्ड बाय डिफरेंट व्यूज फ्लोटिंग अराउंड, जो मैंने अभी पहले भी बात की कि लोगों के मन में कितने सारे मिथ्स होते हैं थेरेपी को लेके. तो व्हेन वी गो टू अ थेरेपिस्ट फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम बिफोर हायरिंग देम, आर देयर अ फ्यू थिंग्स दैट वी कैन आस्क देम?
Yes. So most therapists would do a low cost introduction call, or they would do a free chemistry call, or just be able to do a 10 minutes phone call with them, or any sort of call where you can see and hear this person and see how and on what level you connect with this person. We call this a chemistry check. A lot of people also call this a discovery call, where you can ask your therapist questions like what people do they work with, men, women, what is the age group, what are the modalities your therapist is trained in. You ask them any question. At this point, you don't think that any question is too silly or you know not to be asked. At this point in time, in these 10 minutes or 20 minutes with this person, you ask them everything. And essentially, what you're checking during this time is how regulated your nervous system feels with this person, how centered you feel with this person. Is this person making you feel like you're under some sort of threat? How safe are you with this person? Is this person present with you, your emotions, while you're open up and be your vulnerable self with this person? Is this person being able to receive you like the way you want to feel received? Is this person being kind enough, compassionate enough, open enough? I mean, the technicalities is something that you can always figure out on this person's Instagram, website, on Google, over text. But literally, you use like the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of this call to just check, like, if you're able to be your true self with this person, that you don't have to put on some sort of mask when you're talking to this person.
ओके. तो जो उनके आपके थेरेपिस्ट के क्रेडेंशियल्स हैं वो, प्लस साथ में किस तरीके का कनेक्शन आप उनसे फील करते हो, ये सारी चीज़ें मिलकर डिसाइड करती हैं कि डू यू वांट टू वर्क विद देम और नॉट. सो या, नाउ इवन दो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट थेरेपी फॉर मेंटल वेलनेस, आई नो ऑफ पीपल हु कांट गेट इट फॉर वेरियस रीजंस. या तो दे फील अशेम्ड, या फिर family allow नहीं करती and they can't take it secretly because they don't have the resources. So therapy can be a privilege in some way, though it shouldn't be. So Saachi, what to do if someone can't access therapy? Is there a way?
Mm. So, um, I do know that in the pandemic, there were lots of people that were offering shorter free sessions. There was a lot of group therapy happening. There were a lot of people who were floating around free resources, meditations, journaling activities. And I think that searching for these with a person who you might, or with a mental health advocate or an influencer on Instagram, a lot of them have free resources. You would just look for one or two or three that you really connect with, and mostly in a lot of cases they do offer some sort of free resources, and that would be a good starting point for you. But by no means do I think that there can be any substitute really for therapy, because therapy is its own unique experience. But if you really just were curious and you just wanted to have a taste of what it's like, then I think like some of these content creators in the space of mental health and therapy would be a good place to start.
Okay, so
And there are also like a bunch of podcasts like yourself. There are a lot of people, a lot of books that you might get into. A good place might be to get onto Google and see what exactly is troubling you and how maybe a book um, can help you with a starting point. And again, I'm adding that it's no substitute really for therapy, but it's a good starting point, I would say.
Okay, in fact, I like listening to Therapy in a Nutshell podcast. So I don't remember the name of the host right now, but it's a very good podcast you can listen to. She discusses various topics regarding mental health, and then there is this podcast called The Happiness Lab. That is also a very good podcast. So if you are looking for a mental health podcast, then I'm sure there are more, but I listen to these two. Okay. So, Sachi, we have discussed a lot about therapy, and I hope that we have been able to make people realize the importance of therapy. So, is there anything that you feel people should know about getting help for mental health? Like बिल्कुल basic सी चीज जो mental health के बारे में सबको पता होनी चाहिए.
Hmm. Uh, Therapy is all about creating a beautiful relationship with yourself. It's about nurturing your inner child. It's about getting into the story of what caused emotional neglect, or just, or maybe like a form of that in some way. It's about questioning, did you really have a happy childhood? And the only way to have that beautiful relationship with yourself is to first be curious and open about it. So I would just recommend that it's definitely an experience that everybody should have with a person they feel most connected and comfortable with.
So, throughout my conversation, I have realized that being open is a big thing, and it's really important for your growth. And I think a lot of people think they are open, या फिर they are maybe they are not open, but उन्हें लगता है कि जो वो जानते हैं वही सही है. उससे थोड़ा सा आगे निकल के देखोगे आप, तो आपको बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें दिखाई देंगी जो आपकी हेल्प कर सकती हैं या उनकी हेल्प कर सकती हैं जो आपके आसपास हैं, ऐसे लोग जिनके बारे में आप केयर करते हैं. तो साची, आई रियली एंजॉय टॉकिंग टू यू, एंड जो आपने सिंपल चीजें बताई हमें, एज इन सिंपल चीजें नहीं थी, बट आपने उनको सिंप्लीफाई करके बताया हमें. और I'm sure ki people will look at therapy differently after listening to this episode. And what if they want to connect with you online? What's the best way to reach out to you?
I have a not so active page at the moment on Instagram. It's called Real Talk with Saachi. I'm sure Maitri, you can add the link. I can be reached on this page, and I have other details on this page like my email, and so I can be contacted through email or through my Instagram page.
Yeah, and also please don't ask for therapy over DMs.
Yes, absolutely.
Over DMs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so connect with Saachi Agrawal. And Saachi, I'm grateful to you for agreeing to talk about this here. Thank you, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Maitri. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, and I just love this conversation. हम सबको ये सब बातें समझने की बहुत ज़रूरत है instead of dismissing the importance of therapy. This talk is a small step towards raising awareness about mental wellness and therapy. I hope it helps at least one person. Okay, now it's time for a break. Yes, I will be taking a break from podcasting in November and December. So नवंबर में मेरी सिस्टर इन लॉ की शादी है और उसके तुरंत बाद वी आर मूविंग टू बैंगलोर, तो बहुत सारी तैयारियां करनी है, बहुत सारे काम है एंड आई वांट टू एंजॉय इट. So the podcast will be back on 5th January 2023 with the episode 101. I will be active on my Instagram page at Little Fixes Podcast, so let's stay connected there. इस break में you can catch up on the older episodes of Little Fixes. तो अब मिलते हैं नए साल में. तब तक के लिए लाइफ में मजे करो और सदा सैसी रहो. बाय.